If we know anything about superhero movies, it's that the creators just love to sneak in little details that might tip off savvy fans about what's about to go down over the next 2 hours. But sometimes, those directors are so slick that even the most eagle-eyed among us totally miss out on these hidden clues. From teases to the climax, and hints of supervillains to come, check some of the craziest spoilers you've likely missed the first time around. Days of Future Past has been one of the most critically beloved movies in the X-Men franchise, for its gritty storyline, compelling action, and always impressive cast. And while there are definitely a few confusing question marks about the timeline, as there are in pretty much every movie that tries to tackle time travel, there is one very sneaky spoiler that we totally miss in the beginning of the movie. Early on, we're given a glimpse into a horrifying future timeline for mutants, in which they're kept in internment camps with their powers suppressed by creepy, evil-looking callers. In these collars, we can see an orange liquid that renders them powerless. While you might think that would be it, the serum actually comes back to play a really important role later, when we see a downtrodden Charles Xavier using the same serum to rid himself of his mutation, and allowing him to walk. One of the fiercest female characters in movie history actually came along, and took all of us a little bit by surprise with how truly badass she turned out to be. With her brightly colored hair, fierce determination, generosity, and sage advice, we are of course referring to the one and only, the incomparable Mrs. Potts. Wait, no, hang on, not that Mrs. Potts. We're talking about Tony Stark's right-hand woman turned personal savior and CEO of Stark Industries, Pepper Potts, obviously. And that's Miss Potts to you. Pepper has always had no problem holding her own, and in Iron Man 3 she got her chance to become the hero, which was totally foreshadowed at the beginning, right under our noses. In the beginning of the movie, Tony's mansion is completely annihilated, but Pepper uses an Iron Man suit to save his life, saying, "I got you." Later on, she proves herself right when she takes out Killian and saves Tony and the world in one fell swoop. There's no denying that the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy came along and blew all preconceived notions about what a superhero movie could be right out of the water. They're still considered some of the best ones ever made, and for good reason. In Batman Begins, Nolan snuck a spoiler right in the beginning of the movie that, once you go back and give it a second watch, is so painfully obvious that we can't believe we didn't pick up on it the first time. God, he's good. In a scene when Bruce returns to Wayne Manor, he's throwing on a tux in the giant empty mansion, and comments to his buddy Alfred that this house is a mausoleum. When I have my way, I'll pull the damn thing down, brick by brick. Well, wouldn't you know, later on his childhood home gets completely destroyed by the League of Shadows. Be careful what you wish for, especially if you're in a Chris Nolan movie. The old, we thought you were dead, but at the most critical moment it turns out that you were alive and faked the whole thing so you can swoop in to save the day trick is an old favorite plot device that may be a bit of a cliche by now, but when done right is still totally satisfying. This classic third act reveal is at its best when it totally takes you by surprise. And the return of Nick Fury in Captain America Winter Soldier did exactly that. But wait, what about Maria? He lets Hydra believe that they were successful in knocking him off, and in one scene, Natasha visits his presumed lifeless body. Maria enters and says that they need to take him, prompting Captain America to get Natasha out of the room. Why would Maria need to rush Natasha out of there? Probably so that at some point he'll be able to breathe, and then make a cool guy, black coat swinging surprise entrance later on. One of the bigger surprises at the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy is that Peter, aka Star-Lord, is not altogether human. While he definitely looks the most human of his cohorts, we find out that he is actually the child of a Celestial, and not just a regular Joe after all. But to the keenest of fans with a seriously impressive eye for details, this might not have been such a big shock. One teeny tiny baby Groot-sized moment earlier on just may have given the whole thing away. When Peter is brought to Nova Corps, they give him a full biological scan. And in this exact moment, there is a very crucial spoiler. A mysterious blinking red light actually reveals the fact that there is something unusual about his blood. And it's not until Glenn Close reveals it later on that we understand exactly what it is. The moment in Thor that Loki discovers he is actually a frost giant is one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the film. It explains so much about Loki's feeling of isolation from the rest of his family, and why he just looks so dang different from all the glorious glowing Asgardians. Maybe if we hadn't been so sidetracked by Chris Hemsworth's flowing locks, we might have actually picked up on a pretty big hint of what was coming for everyone's favorite black-haired bad guy. When Thor is about to be crowned King of Asgard, the ceremony is interrupted by two frost giants giants on their way to steal the humbly named casket of ancient winters, led in by Loki. Subconsciously, Loki actually helped his distant relatives, who had been conquered by Odin. It's a sneaky spoiler and easily missed, but it's definitely there. While some jokes from the Ant-Man movies are just that, others actually have a lot more going on than meets the eye. One in particular might seem like a funny throwaway, but it's actually a pretty amazing moment of foreshadowing for what is to come. In a very sweet father-daughter moment, Scott and Cassie are pretending to break into a vault and retrieve a treasured item, which turns out to be a trophy for the world's greatest grandma. While we should all be so lucky to win such prestigious awards, it seems like just a funny joke between father and daughter. But actually, it totally hints at the fact that Scott will be possessed by Janet later in the movie, effectively actually becoming the world's greatest grandma after all. See, Hope doesn't have any kids, but Scott has Cassie, setting up Janet and Hank as Cassie's possible step-grandparents in the future. Let's step away from live action for a moment to take a look at one of our favorite superhero movies of all time, The Incredibles. While the second one just came flying back into theaters, it's the original that we want to spotlight here. We all know that it's one of the best movies ever, but when you figure out this one amazing spoiler, it might make you love it even more. As if that were possible. Early on, Helen tells her son Dash that everyone is special. Dash turns this very motherly statement around on her by claiming that that's just a nice way of saying that no one is special. Well, this seemingly innocent moment actually outlines Syndrome's entire evil plan. He mirrors Dash's earlier statement almost exactly, but in a slightly more villainy, maniacal, sinister bad guy sort of way. Whatever your personal opinion is about DC's massive Batman v Superman and Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Lex Luthor, there is one particular moment early on in the movie that is a seriously snaky spoiler of what's to come. And it all happens at the hands of Lex himself. Literally, when Bruce Wayne and Clark Kent, both in their indecipherable disguises as themselves, meet, they spend a few moments throwing a little shade and sizing each other up before being interrupted by Lex. He proceeds to shake both of their hands, which seems innocent enough, except for the fact that he is actually doing so much more than that. Shaking Bruce's hand, Lex looks right into his eyes and says, "Good." And when he makes contact with a man of steel and glasses, he literally says,
"Ow, wow, that is a good grip. You should not pick a fight with this person."
In that moment, not only does he foreshadow the fact that Bruce will indeed pick a fight with that person, but he's actually confirmed both of their superhero identities for himself. Thor Ragnarok was amazing for a number of reasons, but perhaps the best thing about it was the amazing new direction by New Zealander Taika Waititi. He brought a totally fresh-feeling sense of humor to the movie that we hadn't really seen until then. But what you might not know about Taika is that he has a seriously keen eye for detail, and if you were to go back and rewatch Ragnarok with that in mind, you just might pick up on a seriously amazing spoiler. When Thor arrives back on Earth and is reunited with Loki, he looks very casual, with a t-shirt, jean jacket, and ponytail. While it may seem like a very nondescript outfit choice, the colors of his shirt actually give away a huge plot point. Look closely, and you'll see that he is wearing the exact shades of green and purple that are synonymous with his old buddy the Hulk, who he reunites with later on in the film. We love to see the origins of superheroes and how exactly they learn to hone their abilities. Lucky for us, Man of Steel gave us exactly that, with a look into the trials of a young Clark Kent, who had yet to grasp his power long before he would become Superman. We see young Clark on a regular day in elementary school. He experiences a huge surge of his powers, and as he becomes totally overloaded with them, he panics. It's not until his mother teaches him to focus his abilities that he eventually masters them. Unfortunately for the future Kryptonians who would come to invade Earth, they didn't have a Martha like Clark Kent did. Superman uses the memory of his early meltdown to take down Zod by destroying his radiation-protecting armor and forcing him to experience the same thing Clark did as a kid, coming full circle. Magneto is one of the most conflicted superhero movie characters out there. We know that he's a villain, but it's almost impossible not to root for him, or at least understand his motivations. In X-Men First Class, we really got to understand his anger after seeing his terrible backstory. During his time at Auschwitz, we also got some pretty amazing foreshadowing about how he would get revenge decades later. Or should we say, some forehead shadowing? No? Nobody? We'll just show ourselves out. First, we see the evil Sebastian Shaw, the man who killed his mother, trying to force young Eric to move a coin with his powers. Later in the film, Eric, overcome with fury, sends a coin flying through the photo of Shaw, right through the forehead. And wouldn't you know it, when the two finally come face to face, how does Eric choose to put an end to Shaw? Roll the tape, Johnny! When Professor Lupin, Sir Patrick Morgan, approves Diana and Steve's mission in Wonder Woman, a lot of people were a little bit confused. He is right on the brink of negotiating armistice with Germany, which could effectively end the war right there. Why would he risk all of that by sending a new task force to the front lines and angering the German army even further? We don't know his true identity yet, of course, and this question is actually a total spoiler about who he turns out to be. See, the innocent-seeming Sir Patrick is more than he appears. He reveals later on that he's actually Ares, the god of war, who, if you didn't get by his name, is a big old fan of war. He agrees to their mission because he wants to endanger the peace agreement he is pretending to work towards, and also to prove to Diana that humans are terrible, so she'll sign up with him. Can he just be Lupin again? We miss Lupin. It's a little hard to believe that even the sneakiest superheroes can hide their identity from someone they live with. What with the going out all night, the constant injuries, and everything else that goes along with being a vigilante nighttime crusader. And who are some of the least sneaky people on the planet? Teenagers. So by the time that SpiderMan Homecoming came along, it was about dang time that Aunt May might discover that something was up. And actually, if you watch the movie again, you'll notice some pretty big clues that she was going to stumble upon his secret, even if it was right before the credits rolled. See, Ned Leeds discovers Peter's spy identity. Sorry. In almost the exact same way. Peter's rocking that suit and turns around to discover that Ned has been watching him, just like Aunt May will do later, proving for the 1,000,000th time, always knock before going into a teenage boy's bedroom.
Say no more.
I mean, one of these days, you're gonna end up seeing something.
I got it. Noted. Good night.
The makers of these movies sure know what they're doing, and we bet that rewatching any of our old favorites will reveal even more hidden spoilers. Do you know of any that we might have missed? Which one of these moments of foreshadowing was your favorite? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to ScreenRant, and we hope you had fun watching.